A chilling warning came from the judging committee. Please be mindful of your language during your speech. We do not permit any expressions of a politically sensitive nature here. An immediate silence fell over the vast auditorium, broken only by the slight tremor of the microphone in her hands, broadcast live across the world. The 17-year-old girl from Canada had just received the highest honor. As she was about to offer her thanks, simply for stating, "I come from Quebec," she was interrupted by a sign held up by the technical director. "Revise your identity." 6 words on a placard. She glanced at the large screen far across the hall, where the word Quebec was now obscured by a black bar. She then looked out at the hundreds of pairs of eyes in the audience staring back at her. Her fingers tightened into a fist, her face pale. In the next second, she spoke, her voice trembling but firm. "If I cannot say I am from Quebec, then I don't want this award." As those words left her lips, a silver-haired professor seated at the far left of the judging panel rose from his chair and walked out of the room. A second followed, then a third. Before we begin our story, please like and comment to let us know where you are seeing this from. Your support is our greatest motivation. Her name was Ilara. She lived in a historic stone house in Old Quebec City, overlooking the St. Lawrence River. Her mother was a local history teacher at a primary school. Her father, originally an apprentice woodcarver, had built a small artisan gallery with his own 2 hands. Their family wasn't wealthy, but they lived a life of undisturbed peace. From a young age, she loved to read Quebecois literature. It wasn't pop stars or idols that fascinated her, but the articles where the word Quebec appeared on the page. After finishing each piece, she would cut it out and paste it into a thick notebook. Beside it, she would write her own thoughts. What do they think of us? What do we think of ourselves? No one told her to do this, and no one rushed her. She just felt that if these things were not remembered, they would truly be forgotten. In junior high, she discovered an old book on traditional Quebecois wood carving at a second-hand bookstall. The cover featured a female artisan, with the headline, "We had no capital, but we had our culture." Ilara's eyes lit up. In that moment, she understood that design wasn't just about lines and colors. It was a vessel for culture and memory. She began to walk a different path from her peers. For 3 years of high school, she would head straight to her father's workshop after class. While other girls were studying for university entrance exams, she was carving intricate patterns onto blocks of wood, one piece at a time. Fleur-de-lis motifs, symbols from folklore, even the shop's nameplate. Her teachers warned her not to be overly idealistic. Her classmates laughed, saying her obsession with wood had no future. She remained unchanged, simply lowering her head and continuing her work. But her mother secretly bought her 2 blocks of rare bird's eye maple, placing them at the head of her bed on her birthday without saying a word. At 18, she created a piece named the St. Lawrence Beacon. It was a uniquely shaped wooden lamp. The exterior shell was inspired by the intricate wrought iron gates of historic manors in the city. The internal structure consisted of layers of translucent wood veneers. When lit, 77 unique patterns representing the diverse cultural tapestry of Quebec would appear. The shifting light resembled the vibrant history of the nation, and the shadows, the flow of time. She uploaded photos of her work to the internet, originally just to document it. She never expected a Quebecois professor living in Paris to share it. Beneath the photo, the professor wrote, "I see a child from the New World speaking in a quiet, powerful way." After that, everything accelerated. She received a notification that her work had been selected for an international youth creativity competition. Not only would her piece be sent for exhibition in Europe, but she herself was invited to attend the awards ceremony in Brussels. She was nervous before her departure. She had specially handwritten her own business cards. On them, she wrote, "Ilara, Quebec, Artisan Wood Design." The font was one she had practiced for years in her notebooks. She never imagined that this simple, honest statement would be considered a sensitive phrase abroad. On the third day after arriving at the venue, she handed her card to the official at the registration desk. The official looked at it for a moment, then frowned. "You've written this incorrectly." She was stunned. "What's wrong?" The official lowered their voice. "You can't write Quebec. You need to change it to Canada, or just write your city's name directly. Otherwise, it will affect the organizer's neutral stance." After listening, she didn't argue. She simply nodded lightly, took her cards back, and turned away. Back in her room, she sat for a long time, then stacked the cards one by one, tied them with a string, and placed them at the very bottom of her suitcase. She didn't change them, and she didn't hand any more out. That night, she flipped through her old notebook for a long time. Finally, on a blank page at the back, she wrote, "If you cannot say who you are, creation has no meaning." On the day of the competition, she wore a simple linen dress and walked onto the stage to present The Street Lawrence Beacon. Her accent might not have been perfect, but every word came from her heart. She explained how the patterns on the lamp's exterior were from the city's historic gates, and the 77 patterns within represented the province's rich diversity. She said she hoped this piece could be a light, illuminating a name that was often overlooked. The audience was silent at first, then erupted in applause. A judge from Eastern Europe said with tears in his eyes, "I see a child from a culture speaking to the world." During the awards ceremony, she was announced as the winner of the highest prize. An official handed her the certificate. She bowed her head, preparing to give her thanks. Originally, she had only wanted to say one sentence: "I am from Quebec." Before the words could even fully form, the warning sign appeared from backstage. The official held it high. "Revise your identity." She froze. Then she saw that the silver-haired professor, who had smiled at her encouragingly, now had his head bowed. She turned to the audience again, those faces full of expectation, the flashing lights of the cameras. Finally, she took a deep breath and spoke the sentence that silenced the entire hall. "If I cannot say I am from Quebec, then I don't want this award." The first person to rise from the left of the judging panel was that silver-haired professor. He slowly removed his judge's badge and walked off the stage. A second followed, and then a third. Some people clapped. Some were stunned. Some bowed their heads and wept. But she remained on the stage, holding the stack of undistributed business cards. On them was written, "Québec et Lara." As Alara walked off the stage, her palms were still damp with sweat, as if she had just stepped out of the eye of a storm. Backstage was silent. No one stopped her, and no one approached her. The cards she had handwritten with the word Quebec seemed to have become an invisible wall, temporarily separating her from the rest of the world. But what she didn't know was that while the live broadcast was hastily cut, countless viewers had already taken screenshots, shared, and commented. That scene was now etched into people's minds. An hour later, the International Design Competition Committee issued a statement claiming a contestant had violated the rules regarding contestant speeches. The award result was now under temporary suspension. On social media, "The girl who said Quebec" quickly became a trending topic in various places. People didn't know who she was, only that she wore a simple linen dress. Her voice was calm, yet at her most glorious moment, she cast aside the highest honor just to say that one word. Some called her a stubborn fool. Others praised her as a brave warrior. Many began to search for her true identity. But in her hotel room, everything was unusually quiet. She didn't know she had become the center of a storm, nor did she know that a group of judges had collectively submitted their resignations, accusing the organizers of interfering with freedom of speech and distorting cultural expression. She just sat in a corner, gently wiping her lamp, the street Lawrence Beacon, as if caressing an ancient artifact, a conversation left unfinished. And in faraway Canada, it was the middle of the night, but the lights were on in the old artisan gallery by the Street Lawrence River. Her father was watching the news, constantly wiping his reading glasses. He said nothing, just stared at the frozen image from before the broadcast was cut, his daughter standing under the lights, her expression serene, a fire in her eyes. Her mother sat beside him, her voice trembling slightly. She really did it. They had always known Alara was not a child who compromised easily. She would stay up all night to correct a single carved line 5 times and lose a night's sleep over a piece of wood with the wrong color grain. But they never imagined she would make such a decision on a global stage. She's still just a child, her mother murmured, tears welling in her eyes. She's not a child anymore, her father said, shaking his head gently. She understands better than we do what cannot be conceded. Entech. The next morning, Ilara walked out of the hotel. The sun was brighter than the day before. She had packed her things, ready to go home. No one saw her off, and no one stopped her from leaving. It wasn't until she reached the airport immigration gate that a stranger stopped her. He handed her a letter, briefly introducing himself as an associate professor from a design college in Europe. He said they wanted to use her story and her work as a case study in their teaching. You taught us that some designs are not just decoration, but faith, the man said slowly, in perfect French. She paused for a moment, then nodded. Mercy. As the plane took off, she leaned against the window, watching the distant clouds. She remembered being a child, flying a kite on the riverbank. The wind was strong then, and her kite would always fly very high. Her mother would shout from below, "Don't let it go too high! Be careful, the string breaks!" But she always thought that once a kite soared high enough, even if the string broke, it wasn't a failure. The night she landed, Canadian media were already waiting outside the airport, but she didn't give any interviews, simply bowing her head and walking away quickly. It wasn't until she was in a taxi that the driver turned back to look at her and asked, "You're Alara, the one who made the lamp, aren't you?" She smiled slightly and nodded. The driver was quiet for a moment, then said, "My father was a boat builder. I understand your lamp. Thank you." For the rest of the journey, the driver didn't turn on the radio or say anything more, just safely drove her to her doorstep. And online, photos and slides of her presentation began to spread like wildfire. People found the old design books she had read at the flea market, searched for videos of her woodworking process. Some even flew to Quebec City to film the alleyway where her lamp shone. More and more voices converged into a single sentence. She just said who she was. A few days later, a quiet press conference was held, initiated by the judges who had resigned. They didn't defend themselves but announced the joint establishment of a Freedom of Cultural Expression Award. The first and only recipient was Ilara. "We cannot change her revoked prize," one said, "but we can ensure her voice is truly heard." And in her family's artisan gallery, she continued to carve piece by piece. Her mother asked her, "Aren't you going to prepare something to say?" She replied, "I've already said it." Her mother was stunned. "When?" She smiled, pointing to the lamp. "It will keep shining until no one is afraid to say their own name." Alara never defended herself. The phrase, "I don't want it," seemed to become a kind of mark on her. Wherever she went, she would be recognized, then scrutinized. But she was no longer nervous, nor did she try to avoid it. She learned to work with her head down and to meet people's gazes with her head up. One morning, she was still polishing a wooden panel in her workshop when there was a hurried knock on the door. She opened it to find a middle-aged woman anxiously holding out a wooden box. Inside was an old photograph of a lamp. "Can you remake this lamp for me?" In the woman's eyes, there was a careful plea and an unspoken persistence. Alara took the photo and looked at it for a moment. "I've seen this lamp before. It was an old lamp that used to hang in front of my great-aunt's house when I was a child. Later, due to a fire, the lamp was destroyed with the house. No one ever repaired it. The way it exists in your memory, I can try," she nodded gently. 2 months later, the Street Lawrence Beacon project quietly began. It was a workshop project Alara pushed forward on her own. She didn't do commercial designs, only restored old lamps from people's memories. She didn't accept interviews from abroad and no longer appeared in public. But the number of each lamp, its materials, its structure, were meticulously recorded. I don't want Quebec to just be a debated name, she wrote. It should be a light. The workshop didn't advertise and wasn't promoted on any platform. But every week, it would receive dozens of handwritten letters. Some sent photos of their childhood homes, some enclosed fragments of paper lanterns their mothers had used as wedding decorations. And some just sent a message. Please help me keep this memory, even if it's just a shadow. And on the international design platform she had left behind, the new competition arrived as scheduled. But this time, the list of judges had 7 empty spots. The organizers were forced to revise the rules, adding a section on respecting traditional culture and identity. A campaign was launched demanding the reinstatement of Alara's award. The reason? Politics should not override culture. The petition surpassed 1 million signatures in 3 days. That screenshot was edited into countless short clips, with the title, "She Rejected the Award for One Word," spreading across video platforms. In the comments, someone wrote, "I used to never write Quebec in the nationality field, afraid of trouble. But now I know that word isn't just for a passport, it's the stance we choose to take." One day, a high school in Quebec City held a special lecture, inviting Alara to share her story at her alma mater. She initially didn't want to attend, but after receiving an invitation letter signed by the students, she decided to go. When she stood on the stage, she faced not experts or professors, but faces that were still innocent, yet held a spark. "You all want to hear me talk about having my award revoked, right?" she began with a self-deprecating smile. The students didn't respond, but one girl raised her hand and said, "We want to hear you talk about why you would rather have nothing than change that one word." Alara was silent for a moment. "Because as a child, I always felt that Quebec was a name in the bottom left corner of the map, about to fall off. No one cared if it was a country, a home, or a punctuation mark. I wanted it to become a headline." The room was silent for a moment, then applause thundered. A student was seen secretly wiping away tears. As she was leaving the stage, a boy handed her a piece of paper. On it was scrawled, "Thank you for making me not hide anymore." Time passed slowly. She never returned to the international stage, but the Street Lawrence Beacon project was cited as an example of youth social practice around the world, written into university textbooks. Some said she ruined her own future, others said she used one lamp to illuminate a distant place. And she herself just continued to carve, day after day. At night, when the lamps in the old alleys lit up, she would look out her window, see passers-by stop, look up, and then continue on their way. She knew that lamp wasn't shining for her. It was shining for all the people who had ever been asked to rewrite themselves, shining a light into the void. At the end of that day, she wrote a sentence in her notebook. "Identity is not a label. It is a warmth that cannot be erased." Her mother happened to see the notebook. She wasn't surprised, just gently closed it and walked out to turn on the lamp in the alley. The light shone on the wooden window, just like the flashlight she used to secretly turn on under her blanket as a child, warm, not dazzling, but never extinguished. Did you enjoy a story like this? Like, follow, and comment to tell us which moment moved you the most. Your support is our greatest motivation for telling the stories of voices that go unheard.